In this short video, we're going to talk about the goal of marketing, marketing as exchange, effective communication, and then an overview of integrated marketing communications. Let's start with the first, the goal of marketing. Now, if you looked at a lot of different textbooks, they talk about some fancy definitions of what marketing is supposed to do. But essentially, marketing, as I've written up here on the board, is to facilitate a perceived mutually beneficial exchange relationship. Let's talk about that definition and break it down into its parts. Well, first of all, let's talk about the idea of exchange. And so I'm going to pop in a little bit first over to the next topic, which is marketing as exchange. Now, you know from your other studies perhaps, and definitely from the other class, that marketing can be talked about in terms of the 4 Ps. And so the 4 Ps of marketing being product, place, price, and promotion. You could also talk about marketing in terms of Kotler's 4 Cs. So the 4 Cs being customer value, convenience, communication, and cost to the customer. And then, if you wanted to, you could talk about the 4 As. The 4 As being acceptability, affordability, accessibility, and awareness. If we wanted to, we could probably start talking about the 4 Ds or Es or Fs or whatever else of marketing. It's interesting. I'm not saying that these are bad ways to look at marketing, but typically we should consider marketing as an exchange process. I mentioned it briefly in a previous video. You've heard about it in the Marketing 6805 class. And essentially the idea of marketing as exchange is to say that we're exchanging value one thing for another, right? So we have the exchange of information back and forth, then the exchange of some type of a product innovation for some compensation in exchange for that, so everyone feels some type of value. When we're talking about exchange, usually we're talking about an exchange of some type of good or service or entertainment or information for money. We could also have a bartering type of an exchange where we say we're going to exchange one good for another good. Sometimes people actually do this in different countries where you aren't really sure about the currency, and so you want to just barter instead. We can also have an exchange that doesn't necessarily involve always just goods or money. What if we went to someone like an organization like the American Red Cross, and I said, they're going to give me, some movie tickets or a T-shirt or a mug or a sticker, and I'm going to give them something in return, a pint of my blood. So the question is then, if I'm having some type of an exchange, let's say that's an exchange where I say that I'm giving blood, and in return for that blood, what are they going to give me? Well, they'll probably give me some cookies, and they'll give me some orange juice, and maybe they'll give me a sticker as well. And when we think about that type of an exchange, it doesn't really matter if we're talking about who's the buyer or who's the seller. All that we know is that there's 2 groups there. One person who gives blood, the other person who gives the cookies, the orange juice, and the sticker. Now, I always joke with my face-to-face classes, and I tell them, what would happen if next week I came in with a certified phlebotomist, those are the people who take blood, and I said, they're going to come in and take your blood, and instead of giving you cookies, orange juice, and a sticker, I'll give you double the cookies, double the orange juice, and double the stickers. And I'll take that blood back to my lab in my garage, and I'll do scientific experiments with it. And I usually ask for a raise of hands to say, who's going to come in and volunteer to let me take their blood so I can use it for my scientific experiments. And then they'll say, well, hold on a second, we're not going to do that. And I said, well, but why not? You do it for fewer cookies and less orange juice and fewer stickers. Why wouldn't you do it for me? And some people will say, well, we don't trust what you're going to do with the blood, which is interesting because when you go to McDonald's or Burger King or somewhere else and you give them your money, do you ask them what they're going to do with your money? No, but that's not really what it is. It's not a matter of the trust about that. It's a matter of something else. And finally, someone in the class will say, well, it's not really about the orange juice and the cookies and the sticker or the movie tickets or the T-shirt or the mug. It's about the good feeling that I get when I give that blood. And when you think about that, that's really true. When American Red Cross or down here in Florida, South Florida Blood Banks or Community Blood Centers of South Florida, when they ask for blood or when they advertise and say, come donate blood, what they say is usually donate blood because it'll help save a life. Well, that makes a lot of sense then. And so really, it's not really the cookies, the orange juice, and the sticker that we're giving or we're receiving for the blood that we give, but it's really that idea of a good feeling. So when we think about it, that type of an exchange where they give us a good feeling and then we give them a pint of blood, if we really start to understand what it is that American Red Cross is selling or exchanging, it's a good feeling. And once you understand that, it's easier to understand who their competitors are. And then that way you can say, well, where else can I get a good feeling? And hopefully I can get that good feeling from something like Habitat for Humanity or United Way or whatever it happens to be. It just depends on the type of good feeling that we're trying to get. Other things you might consider are things like, for example, we're coming upon an election season. You could talk about things like voting. What do you get for your vote? And I know what you're going to say, a lot of empty promises. But the idea is maybe you get hope, maybe you get some representation, whatever it happens to be. There are all sorts of exchanges out there, and not all of them deal with money. In our particular case, we're going to think about how money works in exchanges usually. Let's go on for another part of our definition here. To facilitate a perceived mutually beneficial exchange relationship. Why does it have to be mutually beneficial? Why can't I just be greedy, make an exchange, and then just let the other person suffer? Well, the answer is, I wouldn't want to do that because I want to build a relationship. I know that if I have an exchange that is not good necessarily, then it's going to be very hard for me to have future exchanges. And it's going to be hard for me to try to get that person to give good word of mouth to other people. We pride ourselves in the fact that this marketing program, we don't advertise locally in Miami. We rely solely on word of mouth and on search for our program. That's it. We don't advertise, we don't do paid social, we don't do anything like that. We figure if we can build a good enough product, if we can give good enough exchanges and have a mutually beneficial exchange relationship, then the rest of it will be taken care of for us. Well, let's talk about something else here, and this is a really important part of this entire definition, and that's this word up here, the word perceived. When we talk about perceived, what we mean is that it's really up to the individual. It might be that if I were to take two pens, a black pen and a blue pen, and you had the black pen and I had the blue, and let's say you had a lot of black pens and I only had a few blue pens, or maybe only or a lot of blue pens. You had a lot of black, I have a lot of blue. I don't have any black pens and I want to trade. And I come to you and I say, I'd like to trade you for that black pen. Now I find that pen so valuable because it's rare to me. But you find the blue pen valuable because it's rare to you. And so each of us is willing to exchange something. And after we make that exchange, each of us feel like we got a great deal. In fact, we might even feel like the other person was kind of foolish for not asking for more blue pens. Or they might feel foolish because I didn't ask for more black pens because that other pen was so valuable to us. The same thing happens all the time. If you walk into McDonald's when we order something and we buy something, we're giving them $1 or $1.50 or $5 or $10, whatever it is. We must be finding some type of value in that exchange, or we wouldn't make the exchange. If we say we were ripped off, well, maybe we really weren't ripped off. I remember one time I went somewhere with a friend, and it was a new friend that I had, and we went and had some dinner, and the place was really not very good at all, and embarrassingly. And I remember it was about $55 for the meal. And I remember thinking, this meal was not even worth $5. Not the ambiance, not the meal, nothing at all. But I paid the $55 plus a tip and left. And I didn't argue with with the waiter or anybody else there and start arguing back and forth. Why did I do that? If I really felt like it was only worth $5, then why did I bother to pay so much more than the $5? What did I pay? Let's say I paid $70 total. What did I pay that extra $65 for? Most likely, in fact I know because it was me, I paid that to avoid the confrontation and the embarrassment of having to go and argue. Now I would never go back there again. I'd tell all my friends never to go again. But I didn't want to necessarily have that conversation. So for the $65, I paid $5 for the meal, perhaps, $65 to avoid the confrontation. When we make an exchange, we make it psychologically and understanding that there is some type of a value exchange when we do that. Now, it might be really when you start to think about that, you think, wow, I really should be some type of a psychological economist or an economic psychologist. And the truth is you should. You should think from the psychology side to think why people think that the way that they do, and think from the economic side to understand how they value different things. Now let's talk about effective marketing communication. Effective marketing communication is communication that achieves the marketing objectives. Now, we already know what our marketing objective is. It's to facilitate a perceived mutually beneficial exchange relationship, which means then any communications that we put together that help us achieve that marketing exchange, right, for that mutually beneficial exchange relationship, then that's valuable to us. That's effective marketing communication. Integrated marketing communications then is the concept, at least, is that we're going to take all of our marketing communications and we're going to integrate them together, all so they drive toward the key marketing objectives. Let me tell you straight out. The idea of truly integrating all those communications is more a fantasy than a reality. The larger and larger your company is, the more unlikely it's going to be that every communication you have is going to be truly integrated with each other. That's because there's so many more marketing communications than we can ever imagine. A product back package, what people say, the way people dress, the way they look, the branding, the buildings, all of that. All of that is some type of communication, and someone can get an idea about your brand with that communication. When we really talk about integrating marketing communication, what we're really talking about is not just integrating messages, but also integrating with all the other parts of the company, of the organization, of the opportunities that are out there. So we might integrate with our resources, with our people, with our products. When we start to at least think in that direction, we're more likely to achieve what we're trying to achieve. And what we're trying to achieve really is to have messaging that's on target, that helps us to build the brand. And in the end, whether you're building brand or you're trying to promote product, whatever it happens to be, building brand and all of that's not going to be useful unless in the end you can get these perceived mutually beneficial exchange relationships.